All right, so this week in Pax Day, there were a lot of NPCs spawning in, and then there were not. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Pax Day was plagued with a week of servers coming on and then turning off, and then updates going out and not going out. And it was all revolving around a bunch of NPCs either spawning as a result of the last update or not spawning at all. That's what we're going to talk about today. So hello and welcome back, all of you incredibly professional consumers of Pax Day and Pax Day related content out there. I'm Altari, the professional gamer, and this is another episode of the Pax Friday Review, the show where we talk about all the fun, interesting, new, and exciting information that has come out for Pax Day over the last week. Now, like I mentioned, this week, not a lot of new information, but boy, did we see a lot of server outages happening this week over just a small couple of problems revolving around NPCs and NPCs being able to spawn in or not spawn in. Looks like it had a lot to do with some of the back-end services that Mainframe was either migrating to or from, or there was an update that had to do with it. So we're going to talk about all of that here in just a little bit. But before we get to that, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to all of our channel members who are financially supporting the channel. We can't do it without you. Thank you so much for supporting us financially. And then also thanks to everyone else who likes these videos and subscribes. Our goal is actually to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. That's going to be a very difficult task, but I believe we can do it. And the only way that we can do it is with your help by going and hitting that subscribe button so you can stay all connected with all things going on at Pax Day. This is pretty much all of what we cover here on the channel. But with that being said, we're gonna go and hop over to the official Discord here, take a look at some of the changes and reversions and other changes that happened this week with all of the NPC spawning. I will see you all over there. All right, and here we are on Pax Day's official Discord, and it all started, this entire drama. There was a drama that happened this week. And for those of you who maybe don't play the game as frequently, or maybe you play during like normal peak hours for the US, which a lot of members of this channel are, you might not have noticed altogether too much, but for a lot of players who play during different off-hour periods, as well as during like peak EU timeframes, there was actually quite a number of impacts. So where did this all start, and what exactly happened? Well, to kind of cover just really quickly what exactly happened, starting on April 24th. So as of the time of recording of the last PAX Friday review, a server maintenance occurred, and when that maintenance occurred, it appears as though a couple of things had been broken. Now, the patch notes in particular, they were meant or intended to fix two separate issues causing a zone server crash. So the various zones that exist in the game, there were some issues with crashes, and this patch was supposed to fix that. Well, it might have fixed it, but it also looks like it introduced a lot of other issues into the game. Players very rapidly across all of last Friday started reporting back on the official Discord that there were a crazy, just insane amount of animals and spawns popping up all over the place. There were, just myself experientially, I encountered out in Lyonesse like 8 residual harvesters all just stacked on a single spot. They were just constantly spawning in on the same node, I guess, the same spawn node. There were reports of rabbits that were taking over parts of servers. It's actually quite impressive that the servers were able to handle all the additional AI that were coming in, or all the various mobs and their code. It is a zero burden on a server every time you add a new NPC. And many of these nodes weren't just adding a new NPC, they were adding like 4 times the number of NPCs. Now, interestingly enough, this seemed to only take effect in the overworld. So not in any dungeon or anything like that, but everywhere else in Pax Dei, players were reporting a massive increase in the number of spawns of certain mobs in certain locations all across the map. It wasn't just in Lyonesse, it was everywhere. So reports started coming in on the 24th saying, hey, something's off. Of course, Mainframe likes to push updates on Fridays. I think it's because they like to work over the weekend. I don't know. At least I feel like they ended up working over the weekend this time. And they very quickly got into response mode of, okay, well, there's clearly an issue. There shouldn't be this many mobs spawning in. They started having to basically perform rolling restarts of servers because basically these mobs were ultimately, my guess, burdening the server and causing crashes. So they needed to avoid that. And by doing so, the one way that they could is by just restarting the servers, which would restart the spawns. It probably was, well, not probably, it was certainly just a band-aid to solve the problem. And then we did that for a couple of days. You can see this going over the weekend, just doing rolling restarts until we get to Monday, where it was finally announced that they were going to, well, actually Tuesday, I guess, pardon me, push an update. And the maintenance first was going to be coming in on Arcadia to deploy a hotfix, and it should last a few minutes. That happened, and then on the 29th, they said, hey, we're going to be performing a maintenance in approximately 30 minutes to deploy a fix for NPC spawning. So I did push an update to the Arcadia branch. That hotfix looks like they got the results that they were looking for. And then they pushed it to the live branch. Then they encountered a common issue. What is that common issue? Well, Microsoft is just an amazing organization that has 0 flaws, is what they encountered. And their client was taking it was taking an extended amount of time on the Microsoft end. So any Xbox or PC user wasn't actually able to log into the game because of a version mismatch that happened after the fix. So if Mainframe was a betting organization, this would be the worst time for them to test their odds in a casino, because they just picked all of the wrong cards, the shortest stick from the bundle. And as a result, a lot of players weren't able to play the game for an extended period of time, mostly during the morning hours. And then eventually on the 29th, so on Wednesday of this past week, they're able to restore everything. A lot of people were upset about all of these things, including, but not limited to, the fact that the mobs were overspawning, underspawning. I know that many people in the community got frustrated with the destruction of some of their builds that happened as the result of a previous update. And I think what this boils down to, sometimes people critique this channel for being so positive, so pro on Mainframe all of the time, always supporting them. And in many ways I do, and I very much so love their dev team and love the game that they're making. However, I would not be a good member of the community if I didn't critique some things at times. And the unfortunate reality looks like that in this particular case, it might have been an attempt to get a quick response out, but sometimes I believe, what is the saying? Slow is good, or slow is perfect, and perfect is good, or something like that. The fact of the matter is that if we try and push things out too fast before we update, then we start to encounter problems. And after this authentication happened, now players are reporting the inverse of the previously mentioned problem of NPC spawns. Now, it feels as though there are less NPCs that are spawning throughout the world. and it didn't go back to a normal state that they had before. Again, sometimes what this is it might just be something that it could and should be tested internally with QA testing or something like that for them to be able to at least make sure, hey, this fixed the problem, but it didn't overcorrect. And it looks like there was an overcorrection that happened today. And it must be pretty difficult. From their studio's perspective, they're always just, I mean, you're kind of, you're going to be criticized if you do something well. You're going to be criticized if you do something wrong. No matter what they do, there always is going to be criticism. However, there are certain mistakes and issues that should be avoidable. One of them should be, hey, players are committing a lot of time to building structures in your game, and you shouldn't push an update that wasn't tested fully enough to know that some of players' builds could have potentially been destroyed, because that is an update that would actually hurt the player base. Your biggest feature that people love about the game is the level of detail with building. However, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to actually build those things. So don't push an update without fully testing it to make sure that, hey, this update that we're going to push out isn't going to destroy everyone's hard work. Now, obviously that wasn't intentional, but now we have another circumstance a couple of weeks after that happened, where now another update came out where, again, first it was too many mobs are spawning, which, hey, by the way, not necessarily a bad thing. Kind of like it. It was our own little seasonal weekend seasonal event where we got increased spawns and we're able to get a lot more resources from all of our leatherworking friends there, just because there were all these new additional mobs spawning in. But at the same time, this was something that maybe it could have been avoided. Or if there was an issue with the Microsoft client where you pushed an update, pushed it into maintenance, and I obviously I don't understand exactly how the backend is working for this, but it definitely makes more sense to check and make sure that the Microsoft client for something is actually working before you push the update and transition everyone into a new state where now a majority of your player base on Xbox and PC aren't going to be able to access the game. Those are just things that could be easily avoided that are kind of shooting mainframe in the foot. Now, again, that being said, I'm sure there's a million compounding issues that are all coming to the surface here, and this is just an example of it. But it is ultimately unfortunate and causes unnecessary drama in the official Discord, where obviously the naysayers are coming in and referencing, see, they don't know what they're doing, or look, the game's just, it's failing and everything's falling apart. It's not. Nothing's falling apart here. In fact, they've fixed, or they are actively fixing most of these problems. But it is still something that needs to be addressed and needs to be looked at. So I would love to hear everyone's comments about all of the server drama that happened this week. It is sucky. It is sucky to have a week like this where the only news that we have to talk about is how the servers kind of messed up a bit, and an update caused some issues. It's never a fun thing to post about or make content on, but we have to stay true to covering everything new, interesting, and exciting that has happened in Pax Dei. And this is definitely an interesting thing that has happened, and I would be remiss to not cover it for all of you to keep you in the know. Things are looking to be better. The servers are improved now. All of the building pieces that people lost several weeks ago, they should have gotten those back in their inventory. Unfortunately, after players made changes to their builds, some of them weren't able to recover everything. I think that also was kind of a missed opportunity on Mainframe's part. They have an in-game notification system where they can blast every 5, 10, 15 minutes saying, hey, or when a player first logs in, hey, by the way, don't mess with any of your builds. There's an issue right now. Just pause. It almost might have been better for them to just freeze building for a period of time, or save a build state or something like that to help them recover to. I have no idea, but it is something clearly, hopefully, that they're thinking about now, where if they push an update like this in the future, people have been playing the game since October. We're now in May. So people have been playing this game for over half a year now in its live state, and they've invested a lot of time into their builds in a lot of places. I think a lot of players more so care about, hey, is the work that I've spent doing over the last half a year, is it going to accidentally get deleted by a bug that gets pushed by something out of my control? That's an actual concern that they have. And I'm sure Mainframe will write more about that. And they actually apologized for that one too. But then we have another circumstance of this happening in a different way, where it seems like something wasn't tested properly, or some numbers got changed on the back-end servers for spawns. Something went wrong. I'm sure, based on how we know Mainframe, they will come out and talk and do like a little bit of a debrief on exactly what happened here, just so that we, the players, know. And if they don't, it's not like we're missing out on too much. It's all in the past now. But would love to hear everyone's comments about all of the different spawns that happened over the last weekend, and now the lack of spawns that have happened now. But other than that, that's all that we have to talk about for this PAX Friday review. Hopefully you found it interesting and worthwhile to be watching. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, so you can get notified whenever we come out with new PAX Day or PAX Day related content, and share this video with any of your friends who are interested in staying up to date with all things PAX Day. Until the next video, I'm Altari, the Professional Gamer.